This is laughable considering the entire book has been nothing but Channy whining about how she didn't know if her popularity, fame, and book deals were because people thought that she'd slept with Gabe. Hello and welcome to Connotation Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books and discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 21. Channy is confused when she wakes up because she doesn't know where she is. She's embarrassed when she realizes that she's in Gabe's bed, and frustrated because she's alone and fully dressed. And as confused as I was in the previous chapter over how she ended up getting so drunk because, even by her own admission, she only had a few sips of the whiskey and coke. She remembers playing Running Pyramid, and then talking to Gabe's puppy, and then trying to curl up with the puppy on the dog bed. Gabe told her that she couldn't and shouldn't sleep in there, so he'd carried her to his room. There he'd taken off her shoes before leaving. And before anybody congratulates him for not having touched her while she was that drunk, the bar should 100% not be set at least you didn't molest her. Get higher standards. If I'd hoped to dispel the stereotype of the female reporter getting her story via her feminine wiles, well, I was doing a shit job. This is laughable considering the entire book has been nothing but Channy whining about how she didn't know if her popularity, fame, and book deals were because people thought that she'd slept with Gabe. Channy collects her shoes, mulls over her unprofessional she'd been during the sham of an interview, leaves to find Gabe. She hears people talking somewhere else in the house, but as I keep saying, that any suspense that might have been built up in this moment was ruined by the author's inability to stop spoiling what's going to happen. Once she finds him, she apologizes for her behavior and asks why he hadn't put her into the guest room. He says that people were going in and out of there to collect their belongings and that the party ended only an hour ago, and that it's now 3 a.m. He was going to go in there to sleep, but Channy kind of accidentally propositions him about sleeping in his own bed, the one that she was passed out in like 5 minutes ago. They proceed to geek out over how much they love Next Gen, but again, all of this has already been told to us. This exact scene, in fact. We knew it was coming because Channy already told us. However, something that was actually left out is Gabe talking about his father. He says that he knows that people think that he was estranged with his dad before his death, but he explains that he was only 10 when his dad died. He continues on and says that he hates it when people ask him about his dad, that right after people would do that entire "poor you, your daddy is dead" sympathy route, and he hated that more than anything. As an adult, he wants to be more than simply the 10-year-old whose father died. Which is fair, and I really wish that other authors would take note. I'm so sick of the tragically dark hero in romance novels who had X happen to him, and in turn he goes around and uses that as an excuse to be terrible towards the female lead. Not that Gabe has been terrible towards Channy, not in the Christian Grey sort of way that I was thinking about. I understand that part of my job is sharing myself with the public, sharing stories and intimacies of my life, but I can't do that with my dad. Another reminder that celebrities don't know the public access to every single moment of their lives. Gabe switches it up and asks how she got into Star Trek. She says that she was a lonely college student in Iowa with no friends except for on-loan Netflix DVDs. Remember when you could do that? After the book makes yet another potshot at Jeremy, who has yet to make an on-page appearance, they turn their attention to the episode. It's one where there's this basically prostitute species and a girl who cannot possibly be happy until her partner is happy. Yes, it is rather symbolic about Channy's toxic relationship with Gabe, but at this point I'm happy that it's not yet another Romeo and Juliet or Pride and Prejudice reference. He asks if she thinks that it's weird that when the cameras aren't on him, he doesn't know who he is. He pulls out a copy of Channy's first published novel, Some Fiction Things with Dragons, which is making me really angry because she claimed that she was some 2-bit loser, yet she already had a work of published fiction. Like, do you know what I would give to have physical copies of my books floating around out there, ones that I didn't have to vanity publish? She's also been so brainwashed by Jeremy that she thinks that writing about dragons isn't cool, that writing fiction isn't cool. I'm really over the toxic idea that fiction isn't real writing. I'm not saying that her first book wasn't a literary masterpiece, but it's probably much better than she's giving herself credit for. Again, thanks to Jeremy's holier-than-thou brainwashing. They go back to watching Star Trek, but then Channy snarls and sends popcorn flying everywhere when Gabe puts his hand on her leg. He apologizes and she kisses him. They start making out and things start to get pretty seamy. Channy also thinks about how unprofessional she's being, which, a little late for that, honey. Things begin to progress exactly as you think that they would, but then Gabe calls her baby, and it's kind of a slap in the face she needed. She knows that Gabe knows her name, but now she's worried that he'd forgotten it, that he that she was nothing but the newest face in a warm body in his bed. He apologizes for pushing her and then leaves the room. She screams into a pillow because her anxiety had gotten ahead of her, that she'd stopped one of her dreams from turning into reality. Gabe comes back and tells her that since it's late, she should spend the rest of the night in his guest room, that they'll talk more in the morning before he calls her a cab. She agrees to this and locks herself into the guest room. Bonus Chapter 24. Today's Celebrity Reporter snippet is a commentary about Gabe's role in the James Bond movie, but not the first one, the second one. Months before the movie dropped, Gabe was seen looking chubby, bearded, and tired as he went into a rehab facility. This photo went viral, but in the movie, he looked completely flawless. The reporter thanks the costume designers and makeup artists for that. She also can't help but comment on how the now well-known rift between Gabe and the director, Ryan Ulrich, made the movie rather unremarkable, that it was obvious that tensions were high between them. Miss Price continues on to make a comment about the now well-known fact about how Ollie had been offered the role, which he was forced to turn down because of Ulrich's casual homophobia, and can't help but gloat that Gabe's behavior now is just desserts for that homophobe. This section is now Chapter 22. Channy is embarrassed as she thinks about what happened, and it's honestly been so long since we last left the now section that I'm legit confused over what happened. Channy thought that Gabe was going to kiss her. Instead, he chided her for drinking, put her into the guest room, and closed the door. Something, history repeating itself. Surely he'll want to pick up where we left off last night, where we left off 10 years ago. Once again, I'm begging both of them to get the fuck over what happened 10 years ago. Even the knowledge that they did know each other across 3 days and had one makeout session doesn't somehow make Gabe's attempt to rekindle that flame any less weird or creepy. She convinces herself to go out and face Gabe. He's dressed for the day, which is disappointing to Channy. She'd been kind of hoping to do something that involved a lot less clothing. When she goes into the living room to put her shoes on, she finds a magazine with their first interview on the coffee table. This is kind of weird to her because he'd been insisting that he hated the article. There's a really forced, awkward moment where the author tries to show how much Channy has grown past the need for Jeremy's approval, but the only thing written is a single line about how Channy knows that it's a great article because she's a great writer. Except that, as I've been saying this entire time, Channy was supposed to interview Gabe to promote his role in James Bond, but she wrote about herself hanging out with a celebrity for 3 days instead. He then thanks her for not writing about his dad in the interview, although she totally could and should have, and obviously she never told anybody about how the two of them made out. He goes on to say that she's such a good writer that he was instantly brought back to their 3 a.m. conversation. He'd been drunk at the time, so the original memory was a little hazy, but reading it in the magazine had made him decide to approach Jacinda about the marriage of convenience, which, yep, continues to be a good way to decide how to marry somebody, even if both parties know exactly what they're getting into, with the exception that Gabe never told her about Channy. Channy apologizes for having written the article in the first place. Gabe apologizes for being too drunk and running off with Jacinda. Bonus Chapter 25. These are 3 reviews of one of Channy's other books, aka a collection of her reviews. Vanity Fair and O Magazine somehow managed to praise a book without saying anything of actual value. The Goodreads review isn't half as blunt as the first had been, but it's still more in line with what normal people think. Nobody gives a hoot about Channy or literally anything about her actual life. The only reason why she continues to be a household name is simply because people still want to know if she slept with Gabe for her interview or not. And the fact that she was given multiple book deals for the same kind of nonsense interviews is honestly kind of pissing me off. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, then you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to Snark your rating? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your rating is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories And if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys.